Hello, everybody. It's Bill. It's that college football guy here with another video. It's time to start with part 4, the final of the videos in the Big 12 prediction series. This is going to be the final 4 schools. We're talking Texas Tech, we're talking UCF, we're talking Utah, and West Virginia. Then afterwards, I'm going to give you the final recap of the standings and who I think is going to be in the Big 12 championship game and who's going to be the Big 12 champion for 2024. So shall we get into this? First off, we're talking about the Texas Tech Red Raiders. 7-6 last year. They beat Cal in the Independence Bowl. Vegas has your win total at 7.5, so that kind of gives you an idea what Vegas thinks about where you're going to be. Joey McGuire, 15-11 in 2 years at Texas Tech. Not exactly been great. I mean, if you look at you take 7-6 away, folks, you realize he's kind of been pedestrian. So we're going to see how this goes. Biggest concern for Texas Tech: can Baron Morton take the reins of the offense and lead it and run it? That's going to be the key to the whole thing here, because there are people who question him. How well can it be? Running back room will be very, very good. I don't have any questions about them. The wide receiver room got a ton of transfers. As everybody's got a lot of transfers coming in. How well can they blend together? How well can everything work? Well, we're going to find out about that. The offensive line, it can actually be very good. But again, transfers, depth pieces, they did lose a couple bit here and there. So how well is that going to work? Well, we're going to find out. Defensive line was good, but they got to improve the pass rush. I mean, it underperformed. Even the best Texas Tech fan tell you the pass rush should have been better. Linebacker room will be linebackers. Last year's linebackers were everywhere. They were the ones tackling everything. They were the playmakers of the defense, basically. They were the ones making the moves. Can they keep doing that? Well, we're going to find out about that. The defensive back room is solid. It can be better, provided they get a pass rush to help them out. Last year they didn't have it, so they were kind of okay. Can that improve? Well, the pass rush is going to be a big helper with that. So shall we get into this? Texas Tech start off the season at home against Abilene Christian. Yeah, that's a dub. Then you're on the road at Washington State. This one I went back and forth with, because I'm like, okay, travel does matter. Going east to west, west to east, but it's not cross country. This is Texas to Washington, so it's not as far. But it still has an impact. But the question is Washington State, how much did they lose? Is Texas Tech talent more than enough to compensate? I actually think it is more than enough. So I'm picking, even though this was Washington State wins this game, it will not surprise me in the least. But I'm picking Texas Tech to beat Washington State. Then you're at home against North Texas. North Texas has talent, but just not enough to keep up with Texas Tech. You're going to lose that game. You're at home against Arizona State. You saw part 1. You already know you beat Arizona State. You're at home against Cincinnati. If you watch part 2, you know about this. Cincinnati is not exactly a great team. You're going to beat Cincinnati on the road at Arizona. This is a game you saw part 1. You're going to catch your first loss at Arizona. Some people may have thought I misspoke, and maybe I did in the first video when I did the part 1. Arizona's beating Texas Tech, but I did that at the end here. But anyway, the bye comes after that, and you're out of the bye at home against Baylor. And this one I have you coming out of the bye at home. You saw part 1, you're beating Baylor. On the road at TCU. If you saw part 3, the one I just did, you're going to know, yeah, TCU's got a little more talent than you do, I think. And actually, not a little more talent, but you're basically kind of even. But it goes by who's at home, the coin flip game. I have you losing to TCU. You're on the road at Iowa State. This was covered in part 2, I believe. Same thing, coin flip. You're going to lose to Iowa State. Then you're home against Colorado. This is the part, you saw the part, it was in part 2. Offensive line issues are going to be hurting them. Defensive line issues be hurting them. And I'm a huge believer that the game is won in the trenches. That's where you win games. You win games in the trenches with your offense and defensive lines, because you control both of those, you win a lot of football games. But those are going to be the problems for Colorado, not skill positions, but the lines of scrimmage. And you're going to beat Colorado at home. Then you go into the bye. You come out of the bye on the road at Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State is a juggernaut. I covered this in part 3. You're losing to Oklahoma State. And then you come out at home against West Virginia. West Virginia, you lost by 7 on the road last year to West Virginia. And you're looking for revenge. You're at home. I'm picking you to beat West Virginia. So Texas Tech will finish 8-4, 5-4 in conference. Now we're coming to UCF, who was 6-7 last year. You lost to Georgia Tech in the Gasparilla Bowl. Love the name of that bowl game. Vegas has your win total also at 7.5. What a change of quarterback. You get Arkansas transfer KJ Jefferson to take over at QB. Now, he's not super mobile. He's not going to be a Heisman Trophy guy, but he's a damn good QB. And you made a hell of an upgrade with him. Running back room is good. Wide receiver room is solid, but with the portal, they're going to have to come. The portal athletes who are competing for spots, they're going to have to step up immediately, because that could be an issue because of depth purposes. Offensive line, though, the portal athletes who come in are going to be a big cue on this, because you lost 3 of your 5 starters from last year. How well can that line blend together? That's going to be key for the offense. The defensive line, however, is the opposite. They look damn good. I think they're going to be good together. Linebacker room, however, got a complete overhaul. I mean, there is a lot of additions from the transfer portal. How well all that meshed together, that's going to be a key here. And the defensive backs room, the DBs, also had an overhaul. How well is that going to do? So the front 4 is damn good. The back half's in rebuild or retool, however you want to look at it. That's going to be a concern for UCF. So let's start off that you're starting off your season, the Knights, at home against New Hampshire. Yeah, that's a dub. Then you're at home against Sam Houston State. Welcome to FBS. That's a dub for UCF. Then you're on the road at TCU. If you watch part 3, you know the fact that I have you on the road losing to TCU. Talent issue, travel issue. Then you have your bye. You come out of your bye at home against Colorado. I covered this in part 2. Colorado traveling from Colorado down to Florida. You're at home. You're beating Colorado. On the road at Florida. This game was a tough one for me, because if Florida's having problems and they're losing other games, like the A&M game earlier in the year, they start losing this, there'll be pressure on Billy Napier, so things may start falling apart. But Florida's got more talent than you, so I'm picking on the road. Florida's at home. They're going to beat you. Then you go on at home against Cincinnati. If you watch this game, that's been one thing about Florida. Florida also has a bye week prior to this, after you play Colorado. So they get a bye week, which is even more information. I just realized I missed that in my notes. Home against Cincinnati the following week. This was covered in part 2. Yeah, I'm getting loaded right now. Home at Cincinnati right now. Home at Cincinnati. Cover this in part 2. You're beating Cincinnati. On the road at Iowa State. Coin flip game. You're on the road. I covered this in part 2. You're losing to Iowa State. Then you have at home against BYU. Cover this in part 1. BYU traveling down to Florida. Cross-country travel benefits you. You're beating BYU. Home against Arizona. Cover this also in part 1. Cross-country travel benefits UCF. You're going to beat Arizona, because they're going to have that happen here. Then you're on the road at Arizona State. You are more talented than Arizona State, but you're traveling cross-country. I'm a big believer in that. And everybody said, why do you do that? I'm the guy on record on this channel. I've done this for a lot of games. The biggest example was I picked Florida to beat Utah when Utah traveled cross-country. And then when Florida had to travel to Utah, everybody picked Florida to win again. I picked Utah to win again, because cross-country travel hurts you. You're not used to it. Time zones, everything, it screws you up, and it gives you an advantage. Unless you have a distinct advantage in terms of talent. But on the road, Arizona State, you're going to lose to Arizona State. Then you get your second bye of the season. Everybody gets 2 byes. Then you're on the road at West Virginia. This is going to be a tough game for you guys, but I think West Virginia is more talented, and they're at home. So I'm picking West Virginia to beat you, UCF. And then you finish the season at home against Utah. Utah is going to come in maybe a little bit banged up. Cross-country travel benefits you just like it did for BYU. BYU and Utah both got to come down to UCF. Man, you got some great scheduling on that one. And Arizona, too. Wow. But as I be coming up here, spoiler alert, you're beating Utah. So UCF will finish the season 7-5, 5-4 in conference. Now we're talking about the Utah Utes. 8-5 last year in their last year in the Pac-12. They lost to Northwestern in the Las Vegas Bowl. Vegas has their win total at 9.5, so they're expected to do a lot this year. Kyle Whittingham, 162-79 in 20 years at Utah. It's an 8-win average, incredible. With the concern with the fact that they've named DC Morgan Scully or the head coach in waiting. Is this Kyle Whittingham's last year? We don't know. Have the players been told that? Are they going to give something extra? We don't know. I honestly don't see Coach Whittingham doing that. I see him announcing that in the offseason, not putting the pressure on his players. He's not that kind of a guy to do that. Cam Rising is back from injury. Can he stay healthy? Because he missed an entire year. Running back room is good. Micah Bernard is back from injury. So he'll be going on there. How healthy can he be? Wide receiver room is good, and Brant Kuthi, who's an incredible athlete, should be playing on Sundays. He's also back from injury. Why do Utah lose so many games? Your number one running back, you're basically your number one target, and your starting QB all gone. That hurts. That's why they went 8-5 last year with a backup quarterback. The offensive line room, only 2 of the starters are back. How well can the depth come in? There's a little bit of help. How can that step up? Defensive line, 3 of your 4 starters up front, your front 4 are back. That's a big help. Linebacker room is damn good. There's some playmakers and some headhunters. Not figuratively, but they smell for the ball. And the secondary though is a bit in flux. There's some newcomers coming in through the portal and whatnot. Can this all work and blend together? That's going to be a key for Utah's success. All right, so we start off the season. The Utah Utes at home against Southern Utah. Yeah, that's a dub. Then you have the other school that has a non-conference game against a Big 12 opponent, and that will be Utah's game against Baylor. Saw part 1. You already know how this goes. You beat Baylor. On the road at Utah State, you just don't have the talent. They just don't have. They don't have the talent. Excuse me. They don't have the talent. Utah beats Utah State. Then you're on the road at Oklahoma State. I predicted this game on here. This was in part 3. You're losing to Oklahoma State on the road. This is a tough environment to play. Then you're at home against Arizona. You saw part 1. You're beating Arizona. Then you get the bye. Then you come out of the bye on the road at Arizona State. I also covered this in part 1. But you're beating Arizona State on the road. Too much of a talent advantage. Then you're at home against TCU. This was covered in part 3. Talent advantage is too much in your advantage. TCU may keep this game close. This may be a single possession game when it's all said and done, but you're beating TCU. On the road at Houston, this was covered in part 2. Too much talent for your advantage, even though you're on the road. Traveling to Texas, you're going to beat Houston. Then you get your second bye. Come out of the bye on the road at Colorado. I also covered this in part 2. This was a game that Utah fans are going to be looking for because I think some of them want to shut up Coach Prime. Even though they're on the road, I expect Utah's to have one of their better games of the season, and they're going to beat up Colorado. And they're at home against Iowa State. I covered this in, also I think it was in part 2. Let me see my notes. Yes, it was in part 2. We saw this. You're beating Iowa State at home. Then you finish the season on the road at UCF. I literally just did this. You're losing on the road at UCF, cross-country travel hurting you. So that gives you finishing the season 10-2, 7-2 in conference. Finally, we come to the Mountaineers of West Virginia. 9-4 last year in an incredible season for the Mountaineers. They beat North Carolina in the Duke's Mayo Bowl. Vegas has your win total at 6.5. Bowl eligible, but not expected to do much. Neil Brown in 5 years is 31-29 in 5 years at West Virginia. Folks, if you take last year's 9-4 season away, it means they're 22-25 in the previous 4. The reason they're above 500 because of how they performed last year. They say it's talent coming in, everybody getting a grasp on the system, everybody understanding it. We will see. Garrett Green's back as a starting quarterback. He is going to excel, I think, this year. How good? We'll find out. Running back room's good. Wide receiver room lost some. You're having some transfers coming in. Again, how well can that blend together? We're going to find out about that. The offensive line, solid. A little bit move here and there, but you should be in a good place. Defensive backs and the linebacker rooms, both of them, between the defensive line and linebackers, they're all good. The secondary is good. They have the potential to be very good because they got some good transfers coming in. And how well they pick up, how quickly they pick things up, will determine how well they can be. Because they could really be damn good, which is going to make some things happen. So we start with their opening game. I'm not an opener. This isn't a candy game. At home against Penn State. You saw it in the Big Ten prediction videos. I have you losing to Penn State at home. This is going to be a nail-biter. If West Virginia pulled this off, it wouldn't surprise me. But I have you losing to Penn State. Then you're at home against Albany. Yeah, that's a dub. Then you're on the road at Pitt. I covered this in the ACC predictions. On the road at Pitt, the backyard brawl. You are beating Pitt. Then you're at home against Kansas. I covered this in part 3 of the prediction videos. Kansas at home, traveling West Virginia. You're beating Kansas. Then you get the bye. You come out of the bye on the road at Oklahoma State. I also covered this in part 3. Oklahoma State just got too much talent. You're losing on the road at Oklahoma State. Home against Iowa State. I also covered this in part 2. You're beating Iowa State at home. Kansas State, this is going to be a close game. You're going to be at home. Cover this also in part 3. But you beat Kansas State at home. But then you travel on the road at Arizona. I cover this in part 1. Cross-country travel will really, really hurt West Virginia. And you're going to lose to Arizona. And then you come out of the bye on the road at Cincinnati. I covered this in part 2 of the Big 12 series. You have too much talent for Cincinnati. Even though you're on the road, you're beating Cincinnati. He says, oh, it's on the road. Yeah, it's on the road, like right next door. Home against Baylor, the next game. I've covered this in part 1. You're beating Baylor. Home against UCF. I literally just talked about this. You're beating UCF because you're at home. On the road, UCF might beat you, but you're at home. You're beating UCF. Then on the road at Texas Tech, I also just covered this game. On the road at Texas Tech, I think they beat you. So West Virginia finishes 8-4, 6-3 in conference. So let's just, instead of me recapping the Final Four, let's recap the final thing. I'm going to go base everybody based upon their conference record. Worst team in the Big 12 I predicted me this year is the Houston Cougars. 3-9, 1-8 in conference. We have 3 schools tied with a record of 2-7. Arizona State and Colorado are both 5-7. Cincinnati's 4-8. So the 2 worst schools would be Cincinnati and Houston. 1 school's at 3-6 in conference, 5-7 overall. That's Baylor. 1 school's at 4-5 in the conference. They're 6-6 overall, bowl eligible. We're talking BYU. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 schools are 5-4. 3 are 8-4 overall. 3 are 7-5 overall. 3 that are 8-4: TCU, Texas Tech, Kansas State. And the 3 that are 7-5 are Iowa State, Arizona, and UCF. I'm not sure what the tiebreaks are. It's going to go. 1 school is 6-3, 8-4 overall. That's West Virginia, 4th place. 2 schools are 7-2, tied for 2nd. Utah, who's 10-2. Kansas, who's 9-3. And 1st place, 11-1, 8-1 overall, is Oklahoma State. Who's in the championship game against Oklahoma State? I put Utah in it. The same reason I put Miami in the ACC championship game. One of Miami's loss was to the number 1 team. Kansas didn't play Utah, didn't play Oklahoma State. Utah played Oklahoma State. They lost to them, but they still played them. You had a quality loss, a better loss. They had 2 conference losses, but I feel that Utah's losses are better than Kansas's losses. So it's Utah-Oklahoma State rematch in the Big 12 title game. I expect this to be a dogfight, but I'm expecting Oklahoma State to beat Utah in a squeaker. Now, could Utah win this? Absolutely, they could. But I'm picking Oklahoma State to win the Big 12 championship. Now, those from last year are saying, uh-oh, he's picking him again. Yeah, last year, you can go back and look, I picked Oklahoma State to beat Texas. I had Oklahoma State beating Oklahoma in the regular season and then beating Texas. So I figured they're going to beat both of the teams leaving for the SEC, proclaim themselves the new king of the Big 12, and beat both of the teams on the way out. Well, they beat one, not the other, and it wasn't even close. But Utah's not Texas. They may think they are, but they're not. And this game is going to be tight. This game is going to be an incredible game. Maybe one of the games of the year in the championship game. But I'm still picking Oklahoma State to beat Utah to win the Big 12. But I've talked enough. Let me know what you think about all of this down in the comments. So thanks, everybody, for watching. If you haven't done it already, move this thing out the way. Do me a favor. Smash the like button. Hit the thumbs up. It helps the algorithm. Helps the video be seen by more people. Comment on the video. You heard the recap of the standings. Where am I wrong? And some of you are very passionate about certain schools, Arizona in particular. I've had somebody mention my DMs that Arizona's going 12-0. Stop being delusional. They're not doing that. Nobody in the Big 12 is going undefeated. Oklahoma State has the juggernaut, and they lost to BYU. Because I think they're going to get caught napping. They're going to overlook BYU, and it's going to cost them. A lot of games in here in the Big 12 could be schools being overlooked. Yeah, I'm being unloaded here right now. I'm waiting for that to get done so I can get on my next one. They're just bouncing around right now. But let me know what you think about the entire Big 12 down in the comments. Share the video if you want to, and if you haven't done it already. First off, I've made a playlist for the 2024 prediction videos. All of them are in the playlist. So if they go in, they'll be there, and we're gonna see how this works on here. I'm still working this YouTube stuff out, but yeah, the playlist is gonna be there for all the 2024 predictions. And I'll be doing that for 25. So it's ACC, Big 10, Big 12. It's gonna go in order, all of them on it, so you can go through to your leisure and just scroll through and find the one you want. Big 12s will be done after this video posts. I'll put all the Big 12 videos in. Like I said, if you've already subscribed to the channel, thank you for doing so. If you haven't, check out some other videos I've done. I know the ACC ones in here, I'm still working on how to move them out of the way to get them over to the playlist. I got the playlist. It's a little, I'm new to this stuff, folks, so like how to move them out of the way so they're not appearing. But, yeah, I'd like to get that list going. But check out some of the other videos I've done. If you like it, hey, subscribe to the channel. On the way to 700 subscribers, slowly, surely on the crawl of 1,000 to make some things happen. If you want to follow me on X, the link will be down in the description. So again, thanks everybody for watching this video. Let me know what you think of the Big 12. Tomorrow video is the subscriber roll call. What's your favorite school? Put that down in the comments of that video tomorrow. We're getting closer to here. Next week, it's the SEC. And no, I'm not picking Tennessee to go 12-0 before you bother asking. The Vols are my team, but they're going to lose some games. So thanks, everybody, for watching this. Hope everybody's having a great day. Be safe out there. They are everywhere checking for speeders. So thanks, everybody. Be safe out there, and please be good for each other and be good to each other. Can't even talk today.